Il y a longtemps dans une galaxie lointaine, très lointaine, it is a period of making art. Left to their own devices on a desolate island in Brittany, young women discover the costs of their passions against the harsh realities of life and must use this implosion to create what beauty they can. We mustn't look away. Portrait of a Lady on Fire contains depictions of sex, abortion, and drug use, and discussions of suicide. Please proceed according to your needs and comfort level. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The views expressed therein are solely those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of their employers. Salut à tous et bienvenue à 6 degrés de la guerre des étoiles, le podcast où nous explorons toutes les façons dont la franchise phare de George Lucas nous entourait, nous pénétrait et unit le paysage du cinéma en tout. Je suis votre hôte, Sam Marchioni. Or rather, hello there, and welcome back to 6 Degrees of Star Wars, the podcast where we explore all the ways George Lucas's flagship franchise surrounds us, binds us, and penetrates us in the landscape of cinema. I'm your host, Sam Marchioni. Joining me today, Jasmine Garcia.
You know that last long shot of Eloise's response to Vivaldi's Four Seasons? That was basically me throughout this whole movie.
Ellie McConaughey.
If I were to, get a platonic ideal of a pretentious French filmmaker, I think it would wind up Céline Sciamma.
And for the very first time, please welcome Charley Marlowe.
Funny quip about film or French.
There we go.
Yes, very funny quip about film or French. We are here to talk about Céline Sciamma's Portrait of a Lady on Fire in our continued... Ellie, I have to hold you responsible for this somehow. How did sapphics become an invasive species on my podcast?
Look, I would take responsibility for this. They did promise me dark powers. I guess I'm using them on your dice. Those are pretty lame dark powers, if I'm being honest.
We could do better.
I mean, I think we can think of other places to put lesbians.
I can think of some.
I wouldn't mind having a few on my podcast. Oh God, what?
I mean, I think we've already implied the obvious, right? I mean, I'm in my bedroom.
Yeah, I'd like a few on me. Yeah, I live in Stamford, Connecticut, which is the home of the World Wrestling Federation. So I would just like to announce to the world today, Rhea Ripley lookalike contest in my bedroom right now.
God help us.
What's the grand prize?
Me.
I'm judge and trophy.
God.
That has some very fairy tale vibes to it. And, this has its own fairy tale vibes of a sort, or one might even say mythological vibes.
Is there a point where you're going to reveal to us how you've connected this to Star Wars, or do I just have to never know? I'm just very, very curious. My wife was like, so what podcast did you watch that for? And I was like, a Star Wars podcast. And she was like, what? And I'm like, I'd tell you if I knew.
Ire, want to help?
Greetings, I am IR60, Star Wars Retelling Connections. Point of intersection found. This is a degree 6. Valeria Galino was in Frida with Diego Luna, and Noemi Melon was in Tar with Julian Glover, who was in The Empire Strikes Back, and Lego Star Wars The Empire Strikes Out. Additional source material found. This is a retelling of Orpheus and Eurydice.
Okay,
Tar,
I
you
figured
say.
it was the mom, because she's the only one who's not in things that aren't French
Yeah.
cinema, from what I gleaned of their resumes.
This is a wild fucking ride of a podcast.
I'm in Frida country right now. I should watch it eventually.
At some point, Charlie, you should absolutely try out the 6 Degrees of Star Wars Checkerinator, because we have found some weird-ass connections.
Sure.
This is me venturing out into the great wide world of cinema while clutching my Star Wars security blankie.
It's very funny that I'm doing the exact opposite. I have no idea what a Star Wars is, but I'm like, I'll watch a movie, sure.
Oh my god, Charley takes out 5 francs and goes, go see a Star Wars.
So, Charley, Star Wars is a series of pretty good to occasionally great to occasionally quite bad
Breakfast cereal.
young adult kids movies about wars happening in the stars that also turned into a holy war.
Oh, I've seen all of them. I just don't care.
Back to Portrait of the Lady, though.
Spoiler alert, dear listeners, this will also eventually pop up on In Each Retelling if I have anything to say about it. I didn't have a period French lesbian romance take on Orpheus and Eurydice on my bingo card, but here we are.
Hey, it's a great bingo. This was a movie I kind of went in cold to. Like, I basically only knew about it because A, lesbians seem to love it, B, it got cited in the SNL lesbian period drama sketch, and C, Céline Sciamma was one of the filmmakers, the female filmmakers that Natalie Portman quote-unquote name-dropped on her cape at the 2019 Oscars to point out, hey, there are really great female directors who could get acknowledged too, you know?
Okay, so yes, lesbians do love this
Rightfully
movie.
so.
Queer women love this movie. I'm sitting here loving the fuck out of this movie. But, like, this is not just a movie just for the sapphics. If you want to know how well regarded this movie and Miss Sciamma is, when Sight and Sound did its greatest films of all time poll in 2022, they update it like every 10 years or so, this ranked number 30, which is the highest any film from the 2010s got. Like, it is a beloved film, rightly so, in my opinion.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, I forgot there was one other thing I remembered it from. At the French César Awards, I can't remember if it was Céline Sciamma or Adèle Haenel
Both.
who did it, but they both walked out when Roman Polanski won. I think it was Best Director.
Bravo
and
la
one of them was yelling,
pedophilia.
"Bravo, pedophilia!"
Yep.
and doing sarcastic claps.
She rocks, Miss Sciamma. If you want a slightly less... I talk up this movie all the time, and I will continue to do that, but if you want a slightly less downer movie from her, she wrote and directed a movie a couple years ago, Petite Maman, which absolutely shreds me every fucking time I see it.
Ellie, that does not sound like less of a downer.
It's less of a downer. It's a happy crying. It's happy crying. Also, I have a thing about moms.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, me personally, I have had, of course, heard about it because A, I'm on Tumblr, B, I'm queer, C, I love film. Enough said. So this was always on my radar. This was always something I knew I had to sit down and watch one day. And to be honest, I did know there was an Orpheus and Eurydice connection because I saw the gift set of basically one of our leading ladies, Marianne's take on Orpheus and Eurydice, of how he made the poet's choice instead of the lover's choice, which I have mixed feelings about, but I just didn't, which I should have known, because if you're going to bring up some kind of classic story like that in the middle of your movie, you would better be making that allusion to parallel whatever is going on.
I heard about this movie from a server I'm in for some Star Wars podcast. They said the phrase lesbian period drama, and then I clicked the react button instinctively.
Valid.
This is the most lesbian period drama I think could ever be, because like I don't think I noticed it something, and maybe this is a sapphic thing, maybe this is a me thing, but my god, the emphasis on hands in this
The hands.
Yeah.
The hands.
Well, it's all said in the moment when... Sorry, what is the subject and what is the painter's name?
The painter is Marianne, the subject
Eloise.
is Heloise.
Yes.
Eloise says, so that explains those looks when she finds out that Marianne is a painter, which means she was paying a lot of attention to her hands, to her lips, and she was just like, oh, she noticed and didn't have
Eloise.
an alternate explanation for it.
Eloise, parce que non Dieu.
Hey, good, I'm infecting you with my random Frenchness.
Let me be clear, I did actually
That's a
take 7
nightmare
years
of
of
mine.
French. I'm just terrible at speaking it most of the time.
Obviously, they read the book at one point in this movie, or the myth, I guess. Would you call that a book?
Well, it's a book that has the myth in it. I'm guessing the book is probably actually like Ovid's Metamorphoses or whatever
Most
collection.
likely, because that's where it originated.
And so, like, I think it's Heloise says, like, he turned around because she asked him to.
Yep.
And, like, which the implication being that the moment of looking at each other is worth her returning to the underworld, which is essentially what the plot of this movie is. The moment of their connection is worth that very long, very painful shot. I will talk about the final shot in this movie later. But like it's very interesting. I made a crack in the chat. You know, the other sapphic Orpheus and Eurydice adaptation I can think of is Harrow the Ninth, which is, in my opinion, a story about the exact opposite, about Orpheus walking out of the underworld and vowing to never look back the entire time. And the Eurydice metaphor in that book, all she wants is for Orpheus to look. All she wants. It's just so interesting that, like, people come, like, that, the reason that story endures is I feel like people come up with reasons why Orpheus didn't look back, or did look back, or what would happen, blah, 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 blah. But I think that, like, these two very different takes on the myth are, in comparison, are interesting. There must be other sapphic Orpheus and Eurydice. Give me some.
Oh, yep, so we got that, Harrow the Ninth, and I know Orpheus Girl also exists. It essentially uses conversion therapy as a metaphor for the underworld.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's a YA novel.
Of course it is.
Is that what Riverdale was referencing?
No.
Dang.
No.
Something, maybe it will turn out this time.
There is a rescue mission from an underground, scary conversion therapy place in Riverdale. I'm just
Not
saying.
everything that goes in the underworld to get back a beloved is Orpheus,
So
okay?
then-
Isn't it though?
Sometimes it's
Sometimes
Dante's
it's
Inferno.
Dante.
Yeah,
True.
There.
True.
Sam, you and I are spending too much time together. We're sharing a brain cell now.
But I do want to circle back to, you know, we always want to figure out reasons why they turn around. And yeah, ultimately, I feel like the main core of this movie is pretty much everyone has had to make at least one choice that meant we had to lose our heart's desire. And one of the few things that makes that very tragic fact bearable is making art about it.
Hang on, I have to properly go. Art!
Sure.
This is capital A art.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
That's sort of what struck me. Like, I've rewatched this movie several times in the past few years, and to get out ahead of any comments, audience, I didn't have a chance to rewatch it this time around. I was a last-second replacement, which is odd. I think I'm the only person here who's seen it before this. Anyway.
I think so. Yeah.
Anyway, I go back and forth on my interpretation of the final shot, and because, like, it's clearly an important shot. It is a very, very long held shot on a medium to close-up, right?
I love a good one take where it's just the actor acting.
Act she does. It makes me almost sad that she retired from acting after this. I
Well,
understand why,
for
but
valid reasons.
oh, 100% for valid reasons.
100% valid
but-
reasons.
Oof.
But, like, the question I then ask myself is, okay, if you're going to do that long of a shot, and I think it ends up being, like, 4 minutes long, what is the reason? And part of it is just that, like, time works oddly in cinema. You know, 4 minutes is not a very long time in the absolute sense, but in a movie, it's a very long time. So, like, part of that is to make us feel how much she still remembers and misses Marianne's.
I mean, I think you could say the same thing for both of them, really.
But it's also like, if we assume for a moment that the vast majority of this audience is not going to be lesbians, because most of them aren't, it's also kind of like forcing you into this moment with her, into feeling the pain of having had a love that was that powerful, and then having to abandon it for no other reason than society won't let them.
I can't remember the last time I was watching a movie and I was actively, like, kicking my feet and squealing and rocking back and forth like a little girl.
It's so achingly romantic, and maybe that's why it honestly brought to mind the 2005 version of Pride and Prejudice to me. Like,
Yeah.
you've got very similar period romance, yearning, beautiful landscapes.
Oh my god, everything looks so pretty.
It's such a pretty film.
And there's color, and you can see the night scenes, and the candlelight. Oh, the candlelight.
Let's talk about the ocean, because, listen, one of my favorite
I
things
would
about
love
the
to.
ocean... Yeah, of course you would. You're the pirate. But, like...
Ahoy.
Seriously, I have always loved the ocean, partially because it is one of the few things in nature that naturally sparkles. And, God, I love seeing the sun hit it just right.
And the contrast, like, when Marianne is against it in that red costume, I have some quibbles with the hair on this because side parts were so not a thing in the 18th century, but also, like, the stays and the petticoats, and they're wearing chemises under their stays.
They
I'm so happy. This costuming is phenomenal.
I do think the historically inaccurate side part is a little bit of the theme, because we don't see that so much in the first painting of her, and she looks like a painting. And when we see more of the details like that, she does look very modern in that when you see an old photograph and a person is smiling or a person is experiencing joy and not just grimly staring at a canvas, you're reminded how much people in the... So I believe the side part is kind of related to seeing her as a full person, because people do look modern when they're more empathized with it as a subject of a painting.
Mm-hmm. The first painting is very distant and cold in a way that the second one isn't, or the final one.
Honestly, what I really noted at the scene where where Eloise first rejects the first painting is there are a few things more romantic than the idea of seeing an artist's rendering of you that's so lovingly made, which makes the scene where Eloise dismisses it as lifeless devastating.
Oh my god.
And the director has said that that's kind of the theme of the film, is destroying the idea of the muse, the idea of the beautiful woman who is inspiring the male painter through only her beauty, and more raising the idea that the subject and the painter are collaborators building a portrait of a life together.
Yeah, and it's gorgeous. And Eloise is just, in any other movie, she'd be such a cliche, free-spirited period heroine, but she feels so real. Mainly because, while yes, it's said over and over again, she is angry, she's not that outward about it because she can't. It's like this slow burn inside her soul that you can see through her eyes.
It kind of reminds me, and I can't believe I'm saying this, do you remember that monologue that happened in the She-Hulk series that so many man babies got pissy about?
Yep.
It's like,
I have to control my anger.
Yeah, I'm always angry. You're not special. I have to not be angry because of this stupid sexist thing and this stupid sexist thing. That's the level that American audiences are operating on, and then Céline Sciamma's over here, like, playing 4D chess.
I've dreamt of that for years. Dying? Running. Like, that was the moment where I was like, oh, I'm fucked.
That's sort of like the thing. Like, in that scene, I think that the emotional journey the audience goes on with these characters is at least partially coming to understand that Heloise is angry, because when I first met her, like, when I first saw the movie, she didn't seem angry. She seemed incredibly sad. Like, I think there is a reason why the first major moment of connection between them is centered around, I mean, it's like, it's played off as a joke, but it doesn't feel like a joke, like a joking suicide attempt. Yeah. And like, she plays it off like she wasn't serious, but I think that she just sort of like chickened out.
That's valid interpretation.
I could see that. Honestly, that moment gave me Titanic vibes, but honestly done so much better.
Titanic was cited as an influence on this film.
Yeah, I could see it.
Paint me like one of your French girls, eh?
And how?
Not to jump ahead a lot, but then, like, that moment when Marianne is drawing herself in Heloise's book, and she's looking at herself with a mirror that is on top of Heloise's cross.
I almost paused and, like, screamed at my wife, "Look at this!"
That shot is so good, I swear to God.
My
so
jaw
good,
was on
so
the floor.
romantic.
That is...
So good, so romantic, so sexy.
The mirror in the crotch is not any level of... not resembling any metaphor or allegory I've seen anywhere else.
The Titanic comparison is one of the things that sort of, like, bums me out about this film's arrival, because, like, I can say that it's better than Titanic, and I think that it's better than Titanic, but, like...
It is better than Titanic.
You know, I sit here, and when you first rolled up this movie, I thought I shouldn't jump in. It's eligible for my podcast, right? Right?
Nope. I'm sorry, Ellie.
What's your podcast?
Oscar movies, and it's not even nominated. France put up their latest Les Miserables adaptation to get fucking stomped into the dirt by Parasite.
No, wasn't that Les Miserables, like, about protests or something?
I haven't seen it.
Not actually the...
I think I know which one you're talking about, yeah.
The point I'm making, for those of you who don't listen to my podcast, you probably shouldn't.
I will! You can't stop me!
Lies, you should.
Foreign language Oscar works slightly different from the others. Each country has to nominate their specified movie. And France, for 2019, nominated a movie called Les Miserables, which I have not seen. I assumed it was an adaptation of the novel. It might not be. I still haven't seen it.
It is not. It is apparently set in the commune of Montfermeil in the aftermath of the 2018 FIFA World Cup, based on a real-life occurrence of police violence.
That sounds like a jolly good time. But the point I'm circling drastically around is that, like, didn't really matter. Didn't matter what France nominated. It was going to get stumped by Parasite that year. Mm-hmm. But if they'd nominated Portrait, at least it could have gotten, like, costume. I love Little Women. You're going to tell me that had better costumes than this?
Oh god, the costumes in Little Women are horrible. I will talk about it someday.
Oh dear. Yeah, we got 3 opportunities between our 3 podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a rom-com?
It's funny, it's romantic.
I would say no, because 1, Joe March is not straight. You cannot tell me Joe March is straight.
Not only is Joe March not straight, it is debatable if she's cis.
No. We're not doing this. I'm not. Joe March canonically in the fiction of this film is cis and straight.
Straight.
But she goes women, which is my feelings on this movie.
And we're back on topic. Women can do anything, including me. Depressing this movie is at times.
It's achingly so.
The fucking looking at the portrait of her with her child and her finger is thumbed to the page with the nude picture of Marianne. Ugh.
Listen, Heloise, darling, I'm not going to tell you to, like, hire your girlfriend as, like, a servant for specific reasons, but I'm going to tell you, if I'm going to get cucked in a painting by a picture, you should just fucking murder your husband. Just murder him. I would rather get murdered.
God.
Honestly, I would say sequel, except, Adele Haenel has retired.
Céline Sciamma isn't really a sequel kind of director.
Nah.
What about Squeakquels?
That's what fan fiction is for.
Exactly. Somewhere out there's definitely at least one reincarnation AU.
There's the portrait of a lady on water, a portrait of a lady on earth, and a portrait of a lady on air.
Long ago, the 4 lesbians lived in harmony.
Then everything changed when the men attacked.
There's no men in this movie, though.
There's one single
man. There's a couple men, but
there are no named
only
characters.
Have, 5 lines between them.
There's the doctor they take what's her face to go to get the abortion, right?
What's her face?
No, that was a woman.
That was a midwife. That was definitely a midwife.
And I was gonna say, there's a guy who takes her out to the island.
There's the guy who takes Marianne out to the islands. There's the guy who comes to pick up the painting, who I don't think says a word. There's the guy at the art exhibition that's like, oh, your dad did a great job on this Orpheus painting, and Marianne's like, actually, I submitted it under his name.
But it's basically like 90% women, and I love it for it.
And the Bechdel test is very, very easily passed, and the Bechdel test is a joke. It should be this easy.
Yes. Exactly.
The Bechdel test is really interesting in relation to this movie because, like, what got lost in watering down about the Bechdel test is that the actual point of that is it came from a comic strip called Dykes to Watch Out For.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
By Alison Bechdel, and it was actually made up by a friend of hers whose name escapes me. Wallace was her last name.
Yeah.
And it was actually just about pretending that the women in the movies you watch were lesbian. Like, that's it. That's what the comic is about, and it's not actually included in the big Dykes to Watch Out For book set that I have. I think because Alison Bechdel fucking hates it by now.
I know she's annoyed by it, but we don't have anything else better to call it at this point. Because the problem is, it is an annoyingly low bar to clear. So few movies clear it.
Basically.
So, like, I don't think it's actually useful to engage with it on an individual movie basis. Whether or not an individual movie passes the Bechdel test has absolutely nothing to do with that movie's quality or lack thereof, or even necessarily its, like, female centeredness. Fargo fails the Bechdel test. Showgirls passes it. There you go.
So Showgirls is a feminist masterpiece. Got it.
Exactly.
Nope, because there are other things it hasn't passed, because there are more tests now. Like, there's the sexy lamp test, and the Ellen Willis test, and the Vito Russo.
Showgirls is a movie about sexy lamps.
Well,
Back in my early YouTube days, I made a full video about all the different feminist tests that popped up, including, like, the Furiosa test. Does this character piss off men's right dipshits?
The Makomori test.
Well, my final point that I was avoiding saying, because it's one of those things that I say that people get annoyed at me about, is, like, it would be reasonably useful as a metric for, like, how many movies in a year pass the Bechdel test, but that's not even that important. What the real problem with it is, more than anything, is it represents an attempt by really lazy film goers to reduce a film's feminist qualities down to a number so they can get a binary yes or no. Is Showgirls a feminist text? I don't fucking know, man. Watch the movie and figure it out.
We're gonna have to talk about it on a podcast, I guess.
We're gonna have to talk about it on a podcast. It is obviously eligible for...
Oh, God.
It's got to be eligible for yours, Sam.
We will talk about it someday. It depends on whether you force me to do it or if the dice choose it.
I want to be there.
God.
Getting back on topic, there's another thing I want to kind of talk about, because another thing that this movie was kind of making me think of, at least when it started, and still kind of throughout with the visions that Marianne has, it has some gothic elements to it, and I'm a sucker for gothic
Absolutely.
elements.
So true.
Originally, I thought that, like, there was, like, going to be a whole mystery with the sister, and then it's like, no, the sister died for a very specific reason, and yeah, that's reality. But, like, some gorgeous, spooky stuff. Every time Heloise appears in that ghostly wedding dress, I'm like, ah!
And they do the rule of three with that so perfectly, because she has two visions of her in the wedding dress, and then that last turnaround moment, and then she gets engulfed in the darkness, and which is exactly what it said in the Orpheus and Eurydice myth, and I weep.
Yep. And how they discussed it with, maybe that was her voice that he heard. But I also gotta say, this movie has no film score, and it is not, like, distracting or boring because of it, and there's a number of things you could point to, but there is a scene in which Eloise says that the only context in which she is familiar with music is from the convent, church music, organs. So every new music that is heard in the film is her experiencing that type of music for the first time, and the audience experiencing music for the first time in a way as well.
Oh my god, I didn't even think about it, but you're so right. I was just like, the bonfire singing, that was so cool, especially when, you know, her dress catches on fire.
That's the first time you hear music in the entire film, and it's this chanting. That's
well, aside from Marianne playing that little bit of Vivaldi's Summer.
Mm-hmm.
If music be the food of love, baby.
Oh my god.
It is a very naturalistic film, both in how it's scored and in how it's lit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Playing the harpsichord for the person you're interested in your stays, that's like period drama third base.
Yeah, that was...
One of my favorite TikToks for a long time was a woman standing there with a harpsichord, and she says, is she, you know, and then starts playing that song from Court of Our Lady on Fire.
Wonderful.
Honestly, fantastic.
I wish I could play that. Well, I would do that.
Same. I mean, you know what? We could just pull it up on our phones. It's not as romantic, but it works.
Have you ever heard orchestra music? No? Oh, let me show you some. Done.
I mentioned this in a show I did last night, so Sam will be familiar with this story. Not Sam, Jasmine. But, like, one of the funniest pickup lines I've ever heard in my life is I was sitting in a bar, and this woman walks up to me and sort of looks me up and down, and she says, you know, I was going to try to, like, figure out if you're gay, but given you're wearing a Tegan and Sarah shirt, I think I'm set.
Damn
So you know what? Lesbians recognize each other based on music. Calling it here.
In 300 years, somebody will go up to their synthetic electro piano and start playing Tegan and Sarah because they're courting a space nun.
Casually jotting this down.
Someone here watched too much Star Wars.
Don't look at me like that. Don't put that judgment on me. You know what podcast you're on, Charley.
I do. It's very funny because I don't really watch I just watched New Hope for the second time.
You are the most godly of all of us.
I'm not a Star Wars virgin. I've dabbled.
So you would say you have known love? Oh my god, like the intensity of looking at somebody and being like, you've had sex with somebody else. Tell me about it.
Do you think, do all lovers feel like they're inventing something?
I need the romantic film period drama girlies to go as insane over this movie as they do over Pride and Prejudice. That is my take.
I'm not sure they would, because part of the thing is this movie does have nipples. We don't see like big dramatic sex scenes.
We don't see big dramatic nipples.
Like, we see nipples and then, ew, gross armpit hair.
Oh no, shut the fuck up.
Shut the fuck up. They're French, and they're in the 1800s.
And they're lesbians.
I haven't seen 2005 Pride and Prejudice, actually.
You don't see, like, Elizabeth Bennet's armpit hair at any point.
Sad but true. I was talking more about, again, like, the more yearning line aspects. You are right, this is obviously more explicit than Pride and Prejudice. Not by much, but yes.
What we need to do is we need to lure them in with the gift sets of the hands.
We do. That's exactly how we're going to get them. We're going to get them with the hands and the beautiful landscapes and the longing looks.
Handscape.
And the period-accurate COVID masking.
And you know what? If we could get, like, a bunch of the Pride and Prejudice girlies into this, it could be, like, the movie equivalent of when Chapel Roan opened for Olivia Rodrigo. He's like, oh, I am awakened.
Damn right. That is the goal. Yes.
A couple of weeks ago, I sent Ellie a link that I'd found on YouTube of somebody who put, like, a ton of queer cinema over Pink Pony Club. And yes, a large part of it was Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Sure was,
and
baby.
Okay, so where's the harpsichord cover of Good Luck Babe? And where do I needle drop it?
As tempting as it is, this isn't really a Good Luck Babe situation.
No, I feel like, is that the best Chapel Roan song to needle drop? Okay, pitch me. Chapel Roan is doing a jukebox musical of Portrait of a Lady on Fire. What songs do you put
You gotta put Red Wine Supernova in there. That's the sex scene song.
Absolutely.
You do have to put Good Luck Babe in there. That should be the song she sings over the end credit.
You could maybe argue that it kind of fits, like, their very brief Act 2 argument, which, if there's one thing I hate more than a haphazard Act 2 argument / breakup, it's one that makes perfect sense because that means that it hurts and it was intentional.
Unfortunately, I don't know if more of her... Like, you can do Pink Pony Club basically anywhere. You can't really use Casual. You can't use My Kink is Karma. Maybe you could open with Feminine Omenon.
That'd be so funny. That'd be so funny. But you know what? Here's how you do it. You throw in the reincarnation AU aspect to it somehow. I think that is the answer. I'm gonna start working on pitching this, and also, honestly, Chapel, you should make more music that we can associate with this. Pretty please.
No, here it is. I've got it. The wheels in my head are spinning very well. It's both a reincarnation AU, and it's about two girls hooking up over their love for this movie. It turns out I got it. I'm in. I won.
Write the fanfic.
Please. How many fanfics are we going to pitch on this podcast?
Too many.
As many as it takes, because I don't do what you do with the IOR stuff.
That's true. But anyway.
Yet.
You could do a pitch Star Wars spin-offs.
You absolutely could. I would absolutely go for it, because frankly, we need to get some more genres into the space opera.
We're working on it, but now all I'm thinking about is, like, let me double check the date again, because I'm trying to remember if this was when Julie Delpy was running around doing her beautiful nonsense.
We love Julie Delpy in this house.
I want them to know Julie Delpy. I want Julie Delpy to be their third. Bechdel test aside, this movie absolutely is a feminist movie, and it's also one that looks at Laura movie and goes, oh, you want male gaze? I'm starting out with female gaze, motherfucker. Yeah. Look at this.
Female gaze.
Look at it.
The fact that its lead is a outspoken leftist who quit the industry for feminist reasons pointed me exactly to what type of movie this is gonna be.
That, and also, like, the movie literally opens with a bunch of little girls just staring at you intently. Very literal female gaze.
I love that she's an art teacher. I love that they start off with, Yes.
Nobody dies.
Yes, this is going to be a tragic love story, but we assure you she is okay. The only enemy here is society.
The sister dies, but you don't have to be present for that.
That is true. And, madame, perhaps you should consider why there's a high probability that one daughter committed suicide and the other one keeps on trying to delay the portrait that will, make it easier for you to marry her off. Maybe you should think about that.
She will never think about that, and you know it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that is why there is so much distance between you, because there was like this one shot where Eloise is standing in front of her mother, and it's just like they're so clearly mirror images of each other. I mean, Eloise's mother had even said as much, but there's so much distance. And let's face it, I think most people feel that way about their mothers to some degree, because even if you have a good relationship with your mother, there's just always going to be like this odd distance. Because
I feel about my mother the way I feel about Star Wars.
Oof. Sympathies. But even when you have a good relationship with them, I think there's always going to be like this distance, because at the end of the day, it's always going to be lopsided, because if you have a good relationship with her, you are grateful that she gave you life, but how can you possibly make it up to her for that? For all she probably gave up for you.
Do I insert the Barbie clip here?
I mean...
Yeah, maybe.
So the point about the opening shot of the girls all looking for you is that I've always felt like one of Céline Sciamma's best traits as a director is she's not, like, confrontational per se, but she's also not gonna, like, water down what she feels like doing to appease you, if that makes sense.
100%.
Like, Water Lilies is occasionally an extremely uncomfortable movie. Tomboy is extraordinarily uncomfortable at several points. And, like, I feel like that's a good thing. I feel like that's, worth engaging with. She does films that I feel like the rest of the French film industry, and frankly the American film industry, just aren't doing. Apparently she has a new movie she wrote last year it was directed by the woman who plays, Marianne. So I kind of want to go see that now.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
It does have the, how is it phrased on the Wikipedia? 1 second. It does have the LGBTQ related films tag on it, but then so does Lightyear, so I never know what that fucking means.
I was Googling this movie trying to just make sure I have talking points. And one of the Google suggestions was, is Portrait of a Lady on Fire LGBT? And I'm like, stop using that phrase. It's L. It doesn't.
It's deeply, deeply L, and it's great.
I don't know. As
an L, not G, maybe B, notorious T.
Yeah. As a T, I'm just like,
hell yeah.
Hey, we are not a sexuality.
As an A, no, not that one. It is LGBT.
I mean, I will admit that I've always been a little bit resistant to the acronym, because it's a bad acronym. Let's all be real with ourselves.
Yes.
But also, like, at this point, I'm not really willing, as people actively, as NL, not G, maybe B, notoriously T person.
That's wonderful, by the way.
I'm stealing that from Philosophy Tube, to be clear.
That's where I've heard it.
And it's all true about me, to be clear. But as the US government is in the middle of an active attempt to remove the T, and, to remove me from public life, literally 2 days ago, Hunter Schafer revealed that her new passport misgenders her. And, I don't know, I'm not really willing to give up that acronym. It reminds us all, no man, we're all in this fucking together.
No, I just wish when it was used it implied T inclusivity. It seems it's often used just to mean, like, I've shown up at a lot of LGBT events that are like all gay men, and I'm like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, no, absolutely valid. And even within queer spaces, we have our own issues to work on.
I'm not going to really fault this movie for it. Again, it is not the fault of any individual film, but there is a dearth of films about trans people. People point out that the first, people go to another movie that I have almost certainly thrown at the Innator, Desert Hearts, is the first American film where the lesbian couple gets a happy ending, right?
Jesus Christ.
So that's a movie from the 80s. What would we have to do to find one of those for a trans person? And, okay, you could go back and forth about, she doesn't die at the end of The Crying Game, but, I don't count The Crying Game, because you remember how that dude reacts when he finds out she's trans?
I've never seen The Crying Game,
so... They just smash cut to him vomiting.
Okay, gross.
Oh, God.
That scene is in like 12 different things.
Yes, precisely. So like that ends up being like one of those like broader industry things. And we have our first trans woman nominated for an Oscar right now, and boy do we fucking ever. Speaking of the French fucking I could have predicted
you, Ellie, this episode will be coming out after the Oscars, so she's not going to win.
I very much doubt it. It's Demi Moore, I'm still pretty sure.
It's Demi Moore or it's Mikey Madison. Yes, we're recording this before the Oscars, listeners, partially because when you hear this drop, I will be in France.
Make sure to ask them what their deal is with... I was about to say, like, which country are they racist against? Like, it's all of them. What's up with that, France?
What's up with that, Europe?
They will say, how can I choose?
France just kind of hates everybody. France is like the Boston of Europe.
I made this crack once about Europe. Europe will sit there and claim not to be racist. And hey, you can prove that's not true. Just ask them their opinion on Romani people. But more than that, like, what's great about Europe is you can go to France and find this tiny little 150-person town who are racist on a level you didn't know existed against another place, and then you will look it up on your phone and find out that place they're racist against is another town 3 miles down the road.
It's crazy.
They have fractal racism in fucking Europe.
Jesus. Anyway, speaking of trans movies, do you know what was one of the movies that was recommended after I watched this on Canopy?
I saw the TV Glow.
Tangerine.
Oh.
That's a great film.
Yes.
Speaking of Honora as well.
Yes, exactly. And circling back, speaking of solidarity, because obviously, yes, this is mainly a love story, but it is kind of also about the ways that women have been able to support each other, even in times where they didn't have a lot going for them in terms of legality. Like, we should probably talk about Sophie's storyline, right?
I was so wondering about what Sophie's deal was. Like, if this was going to be a love triangle, and I was also like, wait, how old is Sophie? Is this going to be weird?
How old is Sophie? I think is a question I had and it wasn't answered.
Yeah, she's young. She's definitely younger than both of them.
The actress was I think 19 if I'm doing my math correctly.
But she's also just tiny. Yeah. That's a wee babe, and honestly, I was surprisingly, I don't know what to call my reaction, but the scene where she's getting the abortion and that little baby crawls over and grabs her finger, I'm like, oh my god!
Yeah, because here's the thing, I realize that adds on to my whole point that this is a movie about what we leave behind because we have to. Because to some degree, even if you don't necessarily want the child, I don't think anybody ever really wants to be in the position Sophie is in. And hell, something that I have to grapple with whenever this sort of storyline comes up is that while I am vehemently pro-choice, I wish it wasn't necessary. I wish it wasn't necessary for anyone to have to make that choice. In my ideal world, anybody who winds up pregnant that doesn't want to be can just give it to somebody who does, you know? But that's the world we live in. And I couldn't help but relate a lot to Marianne when she tried to look away from when she was having the abortion, because as supportive as she clearly is, she was helping her out. It doesn't necessarily mean she likes that it has to happen. But kudos to Eloise for being like, no, we need to look at this. And then they go on to make art about it.
That scene was, like, a little weird to me, because on the one hand, it was an incredibly intimate moment, and at one point in my notes I wrote, just two cottagecore lesbians and their little sister, because that's what it felt like. But then, like, I don't know, they've put so much weight on the intimacy of drawing somebody that suddenly Marianne sketching Heloise and Sophie in that position makes it a little weird.
There are different types of intimacy, and these three are bonded forever because of what they just experienced together, is how I would take it.
Yeah, I didn't take it as anything inappropriate. I don't know.
And also, again, it kind of just goes back to the idea, it's like, even if this is what Sophie wanted, it still feels tragic. And like I said before, the one thing that makes tragedy almost bearable is being able to make art about it, or being able to connect to a piece of art about it.
Yeah, I mean, abortions were fucking dangerous back then. Like,
they're trying to make it so again. Thanks a lot,
what's
Supreme
this
Court.
back then?
Yeah, I was about to say.
So I'm here in Mexico, so I just rented this on Amazon Prime. I couldn't find anywhere else to watch it. And what it played next for me was Harvey Birdman, Attorney General. Just wanted you to engage in that conversation we had just before.
Yeah,
Sure.
I unfortunately watched this on Blu-ray, so I didn't get what they play next, or why not unfortunately. Fortunately, I'm having a good run of movies I watch on Blu-ray. So my punchline for that joke is that I also own a copy of Céline Sciamma's follow-up film, Petite Maman, and one of the special features on that is a film that Céline Sciamma wrote, My Life as a Cougarette, starring, speaking of trans people, Elliot Page.
Awesome.
Just sitting there. I just sort of looked at that and I was like, motherfucker, that is a 68-minute movie, special featured on a movie that is 72 minutes long. That is not that's just a second movie. You just put a second movie in my movie.
Céline Sciamma, double
No, you have to surpass. You have to be an hour and 10 minutes to be a movie. Other than that, you're short.
I mean, like, some of my favorite movies of the last couple of years, you know, one of the recurring jokes we have on this pod, which is what are the 3 requirements for Ellie liking a movie, Sam?
Weird, gay, long.
And meanwhile, 2 of my favorite films of the decade both clock in under 90 minutes.
Are they weird?
Nice.
We're All Going to the World's Fair is extremely weird.
Are they gay?
Petite Maman, no. Definitely not. There's 7.
Are they girthy?
They're dense.
I mean, Jazz wanted to give this one long. I don't give this one long, but gay, absolutely.
It's long for when you have a podcast record 2.5 hours afterwards.
The movie is not responsible for your poor time management, Charlie.
I'm going to...
I played
Sam,
the movie!
I'm going to hand you a gift. I have this gift here for you that I'm going to give to you that I think will help you out a lot. It's from another movie podcast I watch called We Hate Movies. And it's one of their metrics for determining whether or not a movie is long or short. It is longer than Star Wars. Is the movie longer than Star Wars? The original, to be clear.
Not a whole lot of gleep glops in this one.
No gleep glops, no glup shittos. I'm glad that someone else listens to We Hate Movies. So yes, this movie is shorter than Star Wars by 1 minute.
Oh, that's why it's on this podcast.
Sure.
One day I will force you to watch, like, fucking Drive My Car or something, and then you'll strangle me in my sleep.
I'm sure we won't. And
I'm looking forward to strangling you in your sleep.
God. But you know what? I'm not even saying it slow as, like, a diss. Like, this is a movie that is pensive and deliberate, and that is...
It's a slow burn.
Literally.
It is a feature, not a bug, and that is part of what makes it great. It's just a matter of sometimes you are not in the mood for that kind of pacing. That's literally it.
Yeah.
It probably also helps if you are a French speaker and you can actually, immerse yourself and you don't have to be reading.
Yeah, also... Yes. Yeah, I was about to say, no, yeah, when I get home from, like, a long day at work, I'm not, like... I need a depressing subtitled drama for the next 2 hours.
Something 1-inch barrier.
I put subtitles on everything, so...
True.
The movie that quote is about is a movie that I already referenced before, which is Parasite. Or not about. It got famous in response to that. And, like, one of the points I always make about Parasite is, you know, you hear that Parasite is an incredibly deep and complicated and intelligent film, and it is all of those things. It's also just a blast. It's also just fun and funny and exciting. A movie I was going to compare this one to is a movie that I love with all of my heart and soul. It's Barry Lyndon, which is one of my favorite Kubricks. It is 3 hours and change about this dude just kind of fucking around England.
Barry Lyndon was cited as an influence, mainly for the candle lighting.
I was literally going to say, like, they also did extremely naturalistic period lighting, which in the movie, Barry Lyndon was shot in 75. It must have been a bitch to shoot. But, you know, not that would ever stop fucking Kubrick. They're both movies that take their time, is my end point there. They're not interested in speeding up to feed into audiences' desire to see what happened. The movie is going to get there when it gets there, and if you don't like it, door's over there, buddy.
I will turn this movie around.
And, you know, it kind of goes back to one of the last conversations that Eloise and Marianne have, that the closest they will ever have to wedding vows, where they're talking about all of the things they'll remember instead of regretting, and it ends with them saying, I wasted so much time to each other. And it's just like, there's no way to not waste time, because there is no such thing as enough time with someone you love.
You don't know it's over until it's already ended, you know, with a lot of stuff. You don't know the last time. You know, that's what kind of actually makes Heloise and Marianne extra tragic. You know, most times in most relationships, you don't know the last time you get to be with the person you love. They both know. They both can see the sword of Damocles.
And I'm back to being sad and touch-starved over missing my boyfriends.
Yeah.
The gay is in the yearning.
This is also the gay is in the yearning, but also the girls who fuck movie, Ellie.
It is, like, that's the thing. Like, I'm not necessarily opposed to, like, the yearning. I just feel like people have gotten too fixated on the yearning and not fixated enough on, and then they fuck. And I say that like you didn't just reference Harrow.
That's the beauty of the slow burn. That's where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, but even considering that, like, we didn't see them really fucking that much. We see the aftermath of it. We see one shot of a nipple, but
Snuggling.
like, we don't see them going at it.
Well, sure, it's mostly closed-door romance.
Yeah, and that's fine, but I don't think that's what Ellie was thinking about, given, a couple weeks ago we were fucking watching Love Lies Bleeding.
You need all of your flavors of sapphic affection, yearning, and fucking, and kissing, and murdering people who probably don't deserve it, but fuck it.
And murdering each other, but in a gay way.
And also making a fight club, killing football players with a sword, and hunting down the truth about a film star who actually doesn't exist because Cheryl Dunier made her up. We have had a lot of sapphics over the last 4 episodes.
And Charley, you would I'm
late.
I'm almost positive you would love Bottoms.
Well.
Yeah, this is just a beautiful, beautiful and heartbreaking movie, and I'm just so glad we have reached the point where we have things like this and The Haunting of Bly Manor. Like, as much as we are sick of the tragic lesbian story, I'm glad we've reached the point where we're kind of okay with giving the lesbians their own Titanic or The Notebook or what have you.
Mm-hmm. We have a lot of time to make up for, and we cannot cede any ground.
Damn right we can't.
We're going to put together, when we take back the government, we're going to put together a $200 million government commission every year. We just give it to Céline Sciamma, Rose Glass, and,
Cheryl Dunier.
Let's give it to Cheryl Dunier, yeah.
One more. No, I need one more. What is her name? The woman who directed Shiva Baby and Bottoms.
Emma Seligman.
Yeah, give them each $50 million and be like, you get to make whatever you want this year. Have fun. Oh, you didn't make anything? Okay, next year it's $50 million more. Have fun.
That sounds awesome. Way better than giving it to the army.
Support your local female director today.
For just the cost of one movie ticket, you could go see a really good movie in theaters. Instead of going 6 months later, oh my god, how come they don't make movies like this? Because it made $5 at the box office. You twit.
You idiots! Well, I think that is sufficient sailing into the territory of, is the Force with it?
Of course. May we?
When I did my top 10 films of the 2010s, I couldn't decide on my number 10 slot. It was down to this, Carol, and Parasite. And I never was able to work out which one I liked best. So, yes, it was in the top and worst 12 films I saw in the 2010s.
And I want to say, as sad as this film can be, and you might hear foreign language and be turned off, it's so digestible. It's not like a particularly difficult watch in any way. I recommend it to literally everyone. It was so good. The Force is with it.
It is unanimous. We're all dealing in absolutes, but this ship sails itself. We're sailing in the dark side. Force is with it.
We're sailing into Mustafar because that'll make us all ladies on fire.
Nice one.
Portrait of a lady on Mustafar.
Oh my god, somebody make fan art of this.
Absolutely fucking not.
I was gonna make that my intro joke, but then I forgot.
It's okay. All right. Who has pluggables?
Well, I am the host of, as mentioned before, In Each Retelling, the podcast where we explore all the ways old tales are made new. We are still kind of on semi-hiatus. We do have plans. We're just going to probably be slowing things down for personal reasons. And you can also find me at Favorite VR on all the socials.
As stated earlier, I am the host of The Biggest Night in Podcasting, where we talk about movies that have won an Oscar. Feature-length movies, not the shorts. We've got some great episodes coming up for you. And you can also find me on Bluesky, Medium, and Letterboxd at LSR42, and on Tumblr at Football in Tuxedo.
I hosted a podcast. I have that in common with everyone here. Mine has a different name, though, which I find an important distinction. It's called Mystery Shack Lookback. It is a nostalgic time capsule and no spoiler book club of the original Gravity Falls fandom, taking you back to what it was like to watch the show as a community together while it was airing and try to figure out what would happen next. We just did a 5-hour episode on the Book of Bill featuring video essayist Hannah Hyperfixates, show creator Alex Hirsch, and fictional triangle Bill Cipher.
And in the spirit of Star Wars, to be there for the people who need us, this episode's mutual fund spotlight goes to the Women's Center's Abortion Access Fund. At a time when bodily autonomy and reproductive freedoms are under threat, support those who need to be able to access this vital health care. The GoFundMe link can be found in the description for this podcast, as well as on my various socials under my new handle, Demisem. Our theme music is provided by Refractory Period, the two girls, one beat synth pop sensation. You can follow them on Instagram at Refractory Period, the band. To further support this podcast, please subscribe to us on your platform of choice, leave reviews, and share with your friends to boost our visibility, and consider joining our Patreon. And now, it's time to turn to the Chance Cube to decide where our journey takes us next.
What number do we need to roll to get the sapphic in here?
I'm not telling you!
Alright, what have we got here? A 5.
It's a 5. Ellie?
Yeah?
Are there sapphics in the substance?
No, but I just watched it!
Not, quite.
Not canonically. Not canonically.
There's some vibes at points, especially during the, orgy scenes.
Well, we're gonna see you all in 2 weeks to figure that whole thing out. Until then, stay safe, stay strong, stay beautiful, and may the Force be with you.